LaTania Janelle Carwell, affectionately known as Janelle, was born on April 17, 2001 in Palestine, Texas. Her family relocated to Augusta, Georgia a short time after. From a young age, Janelle exhibited an exceptional sense of responsibility and compassion, especially as the eldest child. The girl's mother, TANYA Faye TRIPP, informed loved ones that she had cancer around this time. As a result, she often relied on Janelle for help, a role she embraced with love. At T.W. Josie High School, Janelle was a standout student. She excelled in science and math, subjects that fueled her aspirations to become a nurse, and one day, a doctor. This career path was deeply tied to her personality. She was nurturing, caring, and always willing to help those in need. Outside of school, she was active in her local church, singing in the choir and participating in community outreach programs. Her passion for music and her role as a leader in her church youth group painted a picture of a teenager with dreams and potential. She was known for mentoring younger students and actively participating in charity drives. For those who knew her, Janelle embodied kindness and determination. She often took on adult responsibilities at home, such as cooking meals and managing household chores. These responsibilities, however, intensified due to an unhealthy degree after her mother's new boyfriend entered their lives.
Tanya began a relationship with Leon Lamar Tripp when he was behind bars for assault and battery. The career criminal had been incarcerated since June of 2009 and had a very long list of felony convictions, including aggravated assault and aggravated stalking, both of these involving his ex-wife. Despite this, Tanya and Leon wrote romantic letters back and forth, and the two soon began dating. Shortly after his release from jail, they married in 2015. In the beginning, Leon presented himself as a supportive partner and a father figure to his now stepdaughter. However, beneath this veneer lay a dark history of criminal behavior, including convictions for family violence and other offenses that were seemingly ignored. Initially thought to be a loving mother, Tanya's behavior shifted dramatically after her marriage to Leon. Friends and family noted a growing codependence on Leon, even at the expense of her relationship with Janelle. Tanya's willingness to defend Leon over the constant arguing in the home seemed to overrule Janelle's feelings and concerns, almost always. Leon's controlling behavior eventually extended to isolating Tanya from her family and friends. Over time, he managed to influence every aspect of her and her daughter's lives. This dynamic set the stage for the tragedy that was soon to unfold.
It didn't take long for friends and even faculty at school to notice a change in Janelle. The once promising student started to show up late to homeroom, became distracted in class, and would often fail to turn in her homework altogether. Janelle also began to withdraw from most of her friends during this period. Janelle, who once had an extremely active social life, began to dwindle. According to her classmates, Janelle was hesitant to talk about her home life, signaling distress that went unnoticed. While her behavior did noticeably change, Janelle managed to maintain the appearance of the average teenager and never let on that anything was seriously wrong. That is until the day of her 16th birthday.
On April 18, 2017, Tanya called 911 to report her daughter missing. Tanya later told investigators that hours prior, her husband Leon received a late-night call from a friend asking for help after his vehicle broke down. According to Tanya, that was the last time she saw both Leon and Janelle, as she'd somehow lost all communication with her husband after reporting her daughter missing. These details immediately raised suspicion. Why would a 16-year-old volunteer for such an errand, especially when it was so late at night? And where was Leon? While Tanya's story wasn't exactly adding up, ground and air search teams were deployed to canvass the area surrounding the teen's home in Augusta, Georgia. Tanya quickly took the Facebook Live to stream her grief publicly online. During the Facebook Live video, which was hosted by family friend Pastor Angela Hardin, Tanya expressed to her followers that she'd been battling lung and brain cancer. During the stream, she also asked for funds to help to locate her husband and daughter. Meanwhile, local law enforcement coordinated with community volunteers to comb through wooded areas, drainage ditches, and abandoned properties. Helicopters equipped with infrared cameras scanned large swaths of land for any signs of movement or freshly disturbed earth, but still, there was no sign of Janelle or her stepfather, Leon.
In the days that followed, search and rescue dogs were brought in to assist these efforts. However, were hindered by inconsistent information provided by Tanya. In some instances, she stated that Leon and Janelle left willingly, while in others, she expressed uncertainty about Janelle's safety. Her conflicting statements diverted resources and delayed the search's focus on critical locations, only placing more suspicion on both of the teens' parents. During their investigation, authorities learned that in the months leading up to Janelle's disappearance, subtle but alarming changes in the household dynamic were present. Neighbors reported frequent arguments, fits of yelling between Leon and Tanya that were heard coming from the home. Witnesses also reported seeing Leon loading tools into his truck late at night, just hours before Janelle was last seen.
A tipster then reached out to Tanya to report a sighting of Janelle just 2 days after she left with her stepfather. According to the tip, Janelle was seen in Clearwater, South Carolina, near Belvedere and Clearwater Road at around 1:30 in the morning. She was carrying a backpack, and when the witness offered her a ride, Janelle declined, explaining that she was waiting to meet someone. One would imagine that this would be pertinent information, but for some reason, Tanya never told the police about this. Other witnesses eventually came forward, informing police that days after Janelle went missing, her stepfather Leon was sighted at a Stop and Shop grocery store in Atlanta, which is about a 2-hour drive west of Augusta. Leon was captured on surveillance at this time as well. However, the footage confirmed that Leon was alone and not accompanied by a 16-year-old girl. Among the friends and family who were interviewed, all seemed to have one thing in common, which were similar reports of Leon's controlling and hostile behavior. Shortly after Leon was sighted in Atlanta, the Richmond County Sheriff's Office released a flyer to the public, and Leon TRIPP was officially wanted for kidnapping.
Meanwhile, Janelle's mother, Tanya, appeared in multiple news interviews following her daughter's disappearance, expressing concern and pleading for her daughter's return. Talk shows like The Michael Baisden Show and The Ricky Smiley Morning Show took interest in Janelle Carwell's case as well, sharing her story and raising awareness about her disappearance. The local news outlet Channel 6 reported that some people following the case speculated about the potential relationship between Janelle and her stepfather. When this theory was brought up to Tanya, she dismissed it immediately.
He married to all this prettiness and he gonna run away with our daughter? Come on now.
As weeks turned into months, the search for the missing 16-year-old girl and her stepfather slowly came to a halt. The public was urged to come forward with any information they had, but however, each lead ultimately resulted in a dead end. Eventually, the case of Janelle's strange disappearance went cold. Law enforcement started taking a closer look at Leon and Tanya. Cell phone records and witness testimonies ultimately contradicted Tanya's initial timeline of events. Not to mention, Leon, who at this point was nowhere to be found, implicated the couple even further. Subsequently, authorities launched a manhunt and eventually tracked Leon to a U-Haul facility in DeKalb County, just outside of Atlanta, on May 23, 2017. In the passenger seat of the truck was Janelle's mother, Tanya. Evidently, Leon and Tanya had plans to flee as the U-Haul was packed to the brim with virtually all their personal belongings. Luckily, authorities had caught up with them before they had the chance, and Leon and Tanya were taken into custody without incident. During Leon TRIPP's interrogation, he inadvertently revealed critical moments of inconsistency, all while implying knowledge of Janelle's brutal fate. At first, he was defiant with the police. However, Leon's facade began to crumble under pressure when he told detectives that he never went to help his friend with his car troubles in South Carolina. Instead, he claimed he and Janelle drove to Atlanta before providing his stepdaughter with some cash and instructing her to catch a bus back to Augusta. According to his new version of events, that was the last time he ever saw Janelle. During Tanya's police interview, evidence soon revealed her active participation would appear to be a cover-up, as well as her being complicit in the crime. During Tanya's interrogation, her statements were inconsistent throughout. She was often deflecting questions asked by investigators. Initially, she claimed to have no knowledge of Janelle's whereabouts, aligning with Leon's story. Investigators, however, confronted her with evidence, including cell phone records and witness statements, which contradicted her so-called alibi. Authorities ultimately recovered text messages between Leon and Tanya that indicated their plans to, quote, handle Janelle and stay on the same page. Authorities also learned that both Tanya and Leon had been using an app on their cell phones, allegedly attempting to create fake IDs following Janelle's disappearance. While there wasn't enough evidence to charge either of them with the teen's murder, a substantial development in the case finally came several months later.
Roughly 1 year after Janelle's disappearance on March 8, 2018, investigators received an anonymous phone call regarding the discovery of human remains. When authorities arrived on the scene, a female's body was located in a shallow grave off of Golden Camp Road in Richmond County, Georgia. The property was vacant, previously foreclosed on and owned by the bank at the time. As far as the victim, an identification came quickly through dental records, which were ultimately matched to Janelle's x-rays, taken from a dentist visit shortly before she went missing. Reports from the autopsy indicated signs of blunt force trauma with possible asphyxiation. Investigators pieced together the killer likely struck Janelle to subdue her before using additional means to ensure her death. At the scene, strands of the ligature used to commit the murder were located not far from the body. By now, investigators had finally pieced together enough evidence to show what really happened to Janelle Carwell.
On the night of April 17th, 2017, Janelle was seemingly lured away under the pretense of helping with the car repair. This was the morning of her 16th birthday at 1:30 a.m. However, investigators determined that this was merely a cover for Leon's true intentions. Under the guise of needing her phone for directions, Leon proceeded to drive himself and his stepdaughter roughly 20 miles north to Clarksville, South Carolina. However, somewhere along the way, Leon pulled the car over. Once isolated in a remote area, Leon overpowered Janelle using restraints to incapacitate her. Forensic evidence indicated signs of ligature marks suggesting she was bound before her death. The exact method of her murder remains undisclosed to this day, but the brutality of the act was undeniable. After Leon killed the teen, he contacted TANYA, who helped him clean the scene and transport Janelle's body to a secluded location near their home. Under the cover of darkness, they dug the shallow grave where Janelle was ultimately found over 1 year later. The haste in which they disposed of her body reflected not just callousness, but a calculated effort to evade justice.
What I will do is give you a brief timeline of when the investigation started, where we are, and then kind of open it up for some questions. Please understand, as you know, that it's still an ongoing investigation, that we have to, some of the information I can't reveal. Feel free to ask your question, but just understand that some things I cannot state because of the fact that this investigation is still moving forward. On April 18th, 2017, TANYA TRIPP first reported her daughter, LaTania, Carwell, and her husband, Leon TRIPP, were missing. That started a missing persons investigation with the sheriff's office. During the investigation, based on information we received from LaTania TRIPP, it was believed, or led to believe, that Leon TRIPP had driven himself along with her daughter, 16-year-old daughter, LaTania, to the Atlanta area in their white GMC truck. On April 23rd, that truck was located on the 3000 block of Woodbriar Court, which is around the corner from the original address. This investigation continued. More and more inconsistencies became relevant in TANYA TRIPP's testimony. So on May 1st, the sheriff's office applied for a warrant for kidnapping against Leon TRIPP. Approximately 22 days later, on May 23rd, after receiving information, a tip from the U.S. Marshal Service, located Leon TRIPP in the Atlanta, Georgia area. To our surprise, TANYA TRIPP was also accompanying Leon TRIPP. On August 23rd, warrants were applied for and obtained for murder on Leon TRIPP and for concealing the death of another on TANYA TRIPP in reference to the disappearance of their daughter, her daughter, 16-year-old Janelle Carwell. At that time, the body had been recovered, but based on information throughout the investigation, we felt confident to move forward with a murder investigation and no longer missing persons or kidnapping. On March 8th of 2018, we received a phone call from a citizen that they were surveying the backyard of a residence at 2211 Golden Camp Road and discovered what they believed to be human remains. At that time, the scene was secured. We made contact with Dr. Alice Gooding, anthropologist contracted through the GBI. The scene was secured on March 9th. Investigators, along with Dr. Gooding, returned to the Golden Camp Road address and conducted a thorough forensic at the proximity of the site where the remains were located. Once those remains were collected, they were gathered, turned over to the coroner's office, and then transported to the GBI crime lab for autopsy and identification. On March 12th, of course, through the course of the investigation, because we did have a missing person, we were able to obtain dental records of LaTania Carwell. Those records were delivered to the GBI crime lab in Atlanta, at which time they confirmed through those dental records that the remains that we had discovered on Golden Camp Road was in fact that of LaTania Janelle Carwell. This has been a long and exhaustive investigation, but it will not conclude until the successful prosecution of Leon and TANYA TRIPP. I would like to thank my investigators as well as operational support personnel for their tireless efforts in the recovery of the remains of Janelle's body. Also, the community support has been overwhelming as they have embraced this case as if Janelle was their own child. Without the help of the community, I don't feel that this case would be at this stage. As I stated earlier, this case is far from over, but at least now the community can find peace that Janelle can finally be laid to rest, and we can move forward with the prosecution.
Following their arrest, TANYA TRIPP's bond was originally set at $500,000, however was later updated to $880,400. And as for Leon, he was denied bond altogether. Both defendants were charged with a range of crimes, including malice murder, felony murder, kidnapping with bodily injury, and concealing a death. Initially, prosecutors sought the death penalty, citing the premeditated and heinous nature of the crime. However, in 2023, the state re-indicted the couple, opting for life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. This decision aimed to expedite the judicial process and provide a measure of closure for Janelle's family. Following multiple delays, TANYA and Leon both saw their day in court in 2024. At trial, the harrowing details regarding the events leading to Janelle's death were revealed. Prosecutors presented a wealth of evidence, including forensic analysis, digital communication records, and testimonies from witnesses who recounted the couple's suspicious behavior. Investigators highlighted the calculated nature of their actions, emphasizing the cruelty of their betrayal. Defense attorneys for Leon argued that TANYA was the mastermind, while TANYA's legal team portrayed her as a victim manipulated by Leon. Prosecutors introduced evidence that indicated that Leon and TANYA TRIPP had previously solicited someone to kill Janelle on 3 separate occasions between 2015 and 2016. In addition, the strands of ligatures located at the crime scene showed the presence of DNA, which ultimately came back as a match to the victim's stepfather. Furthermore, the state called upon experts concerning both defendants' cell phone data. More specifically, pings from local cell towers ultimately placed both Leon and TANYA at the dump site shortly after Janelle was murdered. As if that wasn't enough, perhaps the most damning piece of evidence came from when the soil samples were presented in court. Various forensic analysts took to the stand to testify, establishing that the dirt recovered from the crime scene matched that of soil particles located in Leon's pickup truck following the murder. Both of them maintained their innocence, despite the overwhelming evidence there is against them.
In the wake of Janelle's death, the community rallied together, organizing vigils and fundraisers to honor her memory. A GoFundMe campaign was established to cover funeral expenses and support her siblings. The church where Janelle was an active member held a memorial service, drawing hundreds of attendees who shared stories of her kindness and generosity. Janelle's funeral was held 3 days before her 17th birthday at Great Young Zion Baptist Church in Augusta, Georgia. Her deeply emotional event drew hundreds who gathered to pay their respects, celebrating her life while mourning her untimely death. Friends and family shared heartfelt tributes, remembering Janelle's warmth, intelligence, and boundless potential. The funeral served as both a farewell and a call to action, urging attendees to advocate for justice and the protection of children. While her family continues to grieve, they remain committed to honoring Janelle's memory through outreach and awareness efforts.
The handling of Janelle's disappearance by law enforcement faced criticism. Delays in treating her case as a potential homicide may have hindered early investigative efforts. Early on, law enforcement treated Janelle as a runaway despite her responsible nature both in and out of school. This delayed critical search efforts by nearly a week. That is huge in a missing persons case. In addition, authorities had actually located Leon's pickup truck abandoned halfway between Augusta and Clarks Hill, South Carolina early on. Not only did this indicate that the two never made it to Clarks Hill, but this crucial lead should have been taken more seriously by police. This case highlights the importance of swift action and thorough protocols when dealing with missing persons, particularly minors. Advocacy groups have since called for reforms in how such cases are managed, emphasizing the need for better training and resources for law enforcement. Janelle's story is a stark reminder of the work still needed to protect vulnerable individuals.